I am Karolina, a Christian. I got married to this man who is from India. And this is the story of the issues that we faced regarding religious conversion and my husband. Yes, I decided to examine if religious conversion is the perfect solution for those who face discrimination in the Western nations and casteism in India. But what I discovered is that the rigid social hierarchy that encourages inclusion or exclusion, prejudice and inequality exists all over the world, though it may have differing names and forms. To start with, let's analyze the situation in the Scandinavian countries, which are often regarded as the role models in the Western world. According to researcher Minna Toivonen, in Finland, cleaning work has a somewhat bad reputation, and native Finns are not willing to accept cleaning jobs. This study mentions that in Sweden, cleaning or char work constitutes one of the lowest working class positions in society. Cleaners are at the bottom of the hierarchy, below owners and other white-collar workers in the industry. But of course, the presence of immigrant cleaners has made sure that the toilets of these developed nations continue to shine. But then, how about the brutal war conditions with feces and urine all over the floor? How about the financial exploitation, human rights violations, and attack on human dignity? How can anyone ignore that? Now think on this. In the Swedish cleaning industry, almost 50% of the workforce was born abroad, and an unknown number of undocumented immigrants are working informally. And these two studies reveal that even the legal migrants and highly educated foreign students who come to these countries for higher studies end up trapped in cleaning jobs. There are also cases when these immigrant cleaners are blackmailed or exploited as their employers confiscate their passports or other identity documents. It appears that at the very bottom of the hierarchy are the undocumented immigrant cleaners. As far as Sweden is concerned, what they can go through has even been described as halfway to hell. Just notice the wage difference. Undocumented workers appear to play a key role in the price competition within the Western labor markets, and of course, for many Westerners, the work of cleaning toilets is dirty and has a very low status. In other European countries, the situation is no less horrifying. This study from the Netherlands mentions that 46% of the cleaning staff was of non-Dutch descent. Even households in Germany contribute to black market labor. Around 3.3 million German households employ domestic workers, and 88.5% of households do not even register their cleaning staff. This report from the German Institute for Human Rights reveals chilling details of migrant labor abuse that include threats, violence, a lot of unpaid overtime, no insurance, and even wages of 2 to 3 euros an hour. The United States has a long and painful history of severe abuse and exploitation of its janitors, which continues even today. This study highlights how cleaners in America experience dehumanization. From the brutal incident of June 1990, when the Los Angeles Police Department beat immigrant janitors, to the recent letter written by a US senator which highlights the sexual harassment and rape of the female cleaning workers, America's janitors have continued to suffer. Many of them clean America's toilets at night, so they remain invisible to many and are even regarded as the invisible. Many of them are tortured, abused and raped while on the job. Their abuse is severely underreported. According to one survey, about half of the 5,000 workers who responded said they had been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted at work. UK cleaning industry. Women and migrant workers are overrepresented here as well. Females make up 79% of the cleaning workforce, and 62% of the cleaning industry workforce in London was born overseas. And how are they treated? Well, this study describes that feeling as being the lowest of the low. This may sound ironic to you, but in March 2020, the British Cleaning Council even admitted that without migrant workers, the standards of cleanliness will plunge across London. So does it mean that the British need foreigners to keep their toilets and streets clean? The oppression of those who are in the cleaning industry is nothing new in the Western nations. This brutality appears to be centuries old. In medieval England, a gong farmer was someone who would manually dig out human waste. Facing many restrictions, these gong farmers worked at night and were also referred to as nightmen. And according to author Carl Zimmering, American perceptions of the waste trades as unsanitary and unethical extend back over a century. The horrific abuse that the so-called dishonorable people, or unerliche Leute, face in Germany has been studied by Werner Dankert in her book Unerliche Leute, die verfemten Berufe. This book, which is a part of Cambridge Studies in Early Modern History, highlights the range of professions in Germany which were considered dishonorable. The professions also include the latrine cleaners. This outcast group of early modern Germany faced discrimination, which was hereditary. Ritual pollution was practiced as honorable citizens would become dishonorable just by coming into contact with members of the outcast group. The language and phrases which were used by the common people in Europe can also reveal some cultural and sociological indicators of those times. For example, how many of you know the meaning of the word plagiarize? This book focuses on the visual representation of the socially marginal and outcast people in early modern Europe in countries like the Netherlands, Italy, Spain, Britain and Ireland by analyzing the images of beggars, street hawkers, black slaves and others. Yes, we do celebrate that in America and Europe slavery was abolished long ago. But give this a thought. Has the exploitation and abuse of foreigners and migrants in these Western nations completely ended? Today, the deep division and discrimination in these Western nations is not only restricted to those who are immigrants or to those who work in the cleaning industry. Even I, as a Catholic Christian, can face discrimination in Europe from our own fellow Christians. Do you know that many Protestant Christians look down upon Catholics and do not even consider them as Christians? Not only that, many Protestants also accuse Catholics of worshipping idols. And many small or big streams within Christianity continue to invalidate, discriminate against, or disapprove of each other in multiple ways. But the tensions between Christians of different denominations are not new. Through history, from Europe and America to Australia, these tensions have contributed to some of the most serious conflicts. From the times of European wars of religion, when Christians fought with one another, causing death and devastation, forcing conversions, to the sectarian tensions between Catholics and Protestants in pre-multicultural Australia, one can observe the continuous pattern of Christians hurting or looking down upon other Christians. Read these accounts, which involve school-going kids in 1950s Australia. In Northern Ireland, the religious identity of Protestants and Catholics has played a role in the deadly sectarian violence. Walls were built to minimize violence between these two Christian communities, but violence has not gone away, even today. A 2017 survey that focused on the Catholic-Protestant divide in Western Europe revealed that 34% of Catholics feel that Protestants and Catholics are religiously more different than they are similar. Orthodoxy is the third largest branch of Christianity after Catholicism and Protestantism. Russia has the world's largest population of Orthodox Christians, and in Russia, Catholic Christians are a minority. But tensions between the Russian Orthodox Church and Catholics are nothing new. Now read this to understand how in Russia, one Christian denomination blames and criticizes the other Christian denomination for conversion and expansion. On the other hand, Russia is also blamed for the persecution of some non-Orthodox Christian groups. This report talks of the hardships faced by Pentecostal Christians, and these reports mention the persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia. Jehovah's Witnesses are US-based, and on their official website it's mentioned that they are proud to be called Christians. Then why do so many Christians discriminate against them? Now someone who is not a Christian may wonder, can Jehovah's Witnesses get respect and equal treatment in a Catholic church? Can a Pentecostal Christian get respect and equal treatment in an Orthodox church? And finally, can a Christian perform all his Christian rituals and ceremonies from birth to burial in a church of any denomination? If not, then why do they not treat all Christians equally in all denominations and streams? Why these divisions, exclusions, or inclusions? Why these specific memberships and registrations? Why these attempts by Christians to convert other Christians to their denomination? Why is just being a Christian not enough to be treated equally and to avail services in all Christian denominations? Yes, someone who isn't a Christian may have all these questions. But it's not only the cemeteries that separate many Christians even after death. The bitter truth is that many Christians even oppose marriages or dating other Christians who belong to a different denomination. But such deep divisions or having a sense of superiority over others is not limited to only Western nations and Christianity. Even in other regions and religions, the situation is worrying. In Japan, many parents discriminate against the Buraku people when it comes to the marriage of their son or daughter. This report highlights the caste-based issues and the profile of the Muslim community in India. It talks about two broad categories, namely Ashraf and Ajlaf. And according to the author, Khalid Anis Ansari, these two books were instrumental in exposing the caste-based discrimination prevalent in Muslim society and illustrate caste-based endogamy, the existence of separate burial grounds, the practice of forcing lower Muslims to stand in the back rows during namaz prayers in certain regions, and the practice of untouchability. In many Hindu communities, Brahmins and others who belong to the upper caste groups have oppressed people in the lower caste groups for many centuries, and despite all the social and legal efforts, this abuse continued. This report, published by an American think tank, says that, historically, the caste system was not entirely rigid. Some movement in and out of castes was possible. But regardless, even today, caste-based oppression is a reality in many religious communities of South Asia. While looking for the origins of caste-based discrimination, experts have also shown a lot of interest in some religious texts, but the interpretations of old religious texts can be very tricky. For example, in some cultures, they bow down to the feet to apologize. On the other hand, in some cultures, they also touch others' feet to show respect. That is why, understandably, for some, feet could symbolize defeat or dishonor. On the other hand, for many Hindus, both the head and feet may command respect in their own unique way. In many Hindu traditions, if a tilak is done on a deity's forehead, then their feet are also worshipped and touched to show honor and respect. But regardless of the various interpretations or misinterpretations of the religious texts, we can't deny that casteism and discrimination continue to exist in India. Unfortunately, there are still families in India who hesitate to clean their own toilets. According to my observations and experience, when it comes to cleaning one's own toilet at home, Indians appear to be far more reluctant than people in Europe or America. As a result, in many Indian homes, toilets remain dirty. Many who belong to the upper caste groups shy away from working in such less sought-after professions. Discrimination and endogamy even exist within the lower caste groups. Many reforms and new laws have been established, but slower than expected changes in societal behavior is a challenge. It is also said that caste-based societal tendencies still exist in almost all private and public institutions in India. On the other hand, the perception of many foreigners regarding the so-called caste system in India is also very inaccurate. Branding India's Jati, Kul, Varna and Gotra as caste, a word which actually has Portuguese origins, is a reckless oversimplification. Many foreigners who have a very stereotyped view of India have no clue that in India there are those from the so-called backward or low caste communities who have already held top ranks, such as Chief Minister, President and Prime Minister. Yes, India has definitely come a long way since the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871, enacted by the British colonial government, labelled around 150 communities in India as criminal tribes. The 2015 report published by the American think tank, the Cato Institute, says, "Today, millions of Dalits run their own businesses, and a few thousands have emerged as millionaires. They have become bosses, hiring upper caste workers. This is an unprecedented social revolution. They have become landowners and are hiring upper caste drivers of tractors to plow their land. There is a transformation in the types of homes that they reside in, and transformation in the way many communities operate. Separate seating at upper caste weddings is done. Water and food-related caste taboos are diminishing." The report also cites a Columbia University study and mentions that the poverty ratio of Dalits declined much faster than the all-India poverty ratio. And this presentation from the DICCI confirms the rising entrepreneurship of the SC/ST groups in various states of India. Yes, these are positive indicators, and some positive indicators can be seen in Hindu temples too. But of course, more needs to be done. I appreciate how many Hindus are open to reforms and are extremely self-critical of their kuprata and bad behaviors. Many Hindus are also incredibly open to non-Hindus examining their practices critically. I have also noticed many Hindus practicing more than one Hindu denomination, stream, or even faith, which shows how accommodating and open-minded they can be. Yes, I appreciate India's dharmic traditions because they seem to offer one the freedom to be atheistic, monistic, polytheistic, pantheistic, or anything else. Now I will draw your attention to three aspects that are usually discussed in relation to casteism. 1. Reservation. 2. Disowning parts of ancient texts. And 3. Religious conversion. I will focus on the religious conversion first. In the hope of breaking the caste barriers, many from the marginalized section in India converted to Christianity, but now they face what has been regarded as triple discrimination. It has been reported that many Dalit Christians are segregated in churches, excluded from burial grounds, and shunned in marriage proposals. Here it is important to point out that Dalit Christians are not the only ones who face discrimination in marriage proposals. Endogamy is still preferred or practiced by many communities, including many Christians in India. Pause the video for a moment and read this. This was reported in December 2016. Also, various reports indicate that a vast number of Christians in India are from scheduled caste backgrounds. However, they are severely underrepresented in the church leadership. According to a recent report, among 188 bishops, only 11 are from the Dalit community. As you can see here, the struggle has occurred for many decades, and this injustice inflicted by Christian upon Christian continues in India. How many of us even know that in 2015, the Union of Catholic Asian News reported that Dalit Christians in India filed complaint with the United Nations against the Vatican? How shocking is that? Did the mainstream media outlets in the West or in India do enough to highlight the story? As a Catholic Christian, if I can be looked down upon in Europe by Christians of other denominations, what these Indian Christians can face in Europe or America by Christians of other denominations is something that will also need to be examined. Anyway, life isn't that easy for many Christians in this complex global order. For example, this Harvard University study explores the process of saint-making in the Catholic Church. So what are your chances if you are not from the traditional saint-producing countries of Western Europe? By the way, Italy has the highest number. Well, according to Dr. Jeffrey Myers, the fact that Italy has more canonized saints does not at all mean that there are really more Italians than any other national group in heaven. Anyway, back in India, there seems to be some relation between religious conversion and demographic struggles. From the religious tensions in Meghalaya to the discrimination against the Chakma tribe in Mizoram by the Christian-majority Mizo tribes, many Christian majority regions in India are already witnessing the oppression of non-Christians. In relation to that, I recommend this episode to you. Please add this to your watch list. In relation to demographics, there's another concern. Isn't it ironic that many Western nations talk the loudest about preserving diversity and pluralism, but then it also appears that they are the source of many expansionist forces that threaten our global diversity by homogenizing our world on religious grounds? Well, this article in The Guardian mentions a large and sophisticated apparatus that exists to assist Americans interested in proselytizing. It also mentions that the American man who wanted to convert the Sentinelese tribe in India to Christianity was accepted to a boot camp run by All Nations, a Kansas City organization that works to see Jesus worshipped by every tongue, tribe, and nation. According to the article, databases such as People Groups and the Joshua Project gather information on what evangelicals call unreached people groups. So, does it mean that global conquest is real? Well, this is what Pope Francis said regarding this. Read this statement carefully. If that is really the case, then I have a few questions. For those who believe in the idea of global conquest by their religious monoculture, how can they even claim to believe in the idea of the coexistence of multiple cultures? Those who want exclusivity and expansion, how can they claim to support multiple paths and views? And finally, isn't it a paradox that the monotheistic ideologies are trying to preach the importance of pluralism to us? If there is no diversity, there will be no pluralism. Then why kill global diversity? Why have the expansionist mentality? Even the United Nations talks about the importance of preserving diversity. Please read this carefully. Yes, global conquest seems to be against the principles on which the United Nations is built. And yes, it is this idea of conquering the world which is the real enemy of pluralism and diversity. Once gone, it isn't easy to bring back diversity. In India, sometimes there are efforts to try to bring those people who had left their Hindu lifestyle or their native traditions to join monotheistic faith systems back to Dharmic or Hindu traditions. However, this creates lots of socio-political ripples in India. But all over the world, when will the vulnerable communities be able to reason better? Did you know what happened to these people in Uganda? Why be a victim of such miracle cures that seem to have no scientific basis? As a Christian, I find it so embarrassing. And anyway, why do they even do this to those people? Probably only they know the answer. As far as the desire to convert is concerned, the PW Research Center has something to say about Muslims. In most countries surveyed, at least half of Muslims believe it is their religious duty to try to convert others to the Islamic faith. Go through this list. In South Asia, Pakistan, 85% of Muslims believe that converting others is a religious duty. In Afghanistan, it is 96%. Egypt, 88%. Malaysia, 79%. But wait a minute, how about Hindus? Do they also believe in global expansion through religious conversion? Well, according to the Oxford Handbook of Religious Conversion, the notion of conversion is closely associated with the membership of a religion that involves exclusive religious identity, as is typically the case with the Abrahamic religions. On the other hand, Hinduism is typically quite comfortable with multiple religious participation, affiliation, and identity. But there is something also worth pointing out. If new churches are being built in India, then some independent religious gurus or spiritual groups from India have also established their centers abroad. How about that? One could also say that just like churches are coming up in those regions of India that are not traditionally Christian, temples are also coming up in the USA in regions that are not traditionally Hindu. But is that a fair comparison? As there seem to be two major differences. Difference 1. In India, those newly built churches are usually filled with the local Indian population who are newly converted, and in America, those temples usually cater to the needs of the existing Hindu population, and hence they are usually filled with the expats and Hindus who may even track their ancestry to India or the subcontinent. Difference 2. I spoke to some of those converted Christians in India and asked them what they knew about Jesus or Christianity. Surprisingly, many had almost no idea about their own new religion. In contrast, in the USA, when I spoke to some Americans who had chosen Hindu paths and had embraced Hinduism, I felt that they even possessed more knowledge about Hinduism than the average Hindu. This reflected their genuine interest towards the Hindu lifestyle. That is why, in a free world, it seems that genuine conversion to any religion of one's choice is not wrong, but conversion by fraud, greed, or deception can be. And as far as controversial religious or spiritual leaders are concerned, they seem to be there in all major religions. Have you heard of the Jesus of Siberia? Or the Chinese female Jesus? Or how about some other controversial religious groups that were born in America, like Children of God? The group was also known as Teens for Christ and had global ambitions. According to the American religious studies scholar J. Gordon Melton, in a very controversial practice known as flirty fishing, female members use their feminine charms while witnessing God's love to lonely men. Sex appeal was used for proselytizing. The group even encouraged sexual contact between adults and children. The survivors of this group narrate their painful stories even today. Sexual abuse in religious institutions is an issue that I have analyzed earlier. I recommend you watch this. Now let's focus on another aspect regarding casteism, and that is the idea of disowning ancient texts that is usually blamed for caste-based discrimination. Usually, Manusmriti is in focus, which may be regarded as a book of social code of a bygone era. Well, the idea to disown parts of ancient texts that contradict the constitution seems to be a progressive one. But will it be fair to only help Hindus benefit from such progressive and critical thinking and leave other religions behind? Why discriminate against other religions? Why not help them to identify or disown the portions of their outdated texts that may not match the constitution? Why should only Hindus get the benefit of such progressive thoughts? Shouldn't all religions welcome this? As far as critical thinking regarding Christianity is concerned, the story of the famous author Horace Gilgamesh is worth noticing. Horace was raised Catholic before being born again in college, and early on his efforts were focused on youth evangelism and biblical literacy around the world. Later, he started to think critically about the Bible and the ethos of Christianity in modern culture. He is the author of the book The Awkward Moments Children's Bible, and according to this article, the illustrations in his book are meant to stir critical thinking. These books are out there, but how many Christians are ready to be self-critical and examine their own texts? As a Christian, would you want to read this book? Now I want to focus on reservation. In India, caste-based reservation in employment, education, and legislature can be regarded as a kind of compensation that aims to help the historically disadvantaged groups. So, India took concrete steps to help those who faced historical injustice and discrimination. Shouldn't all former colonial powers pay reparations to the descendants of those immigrants who faced historical injustice? And please note that it is not only about historical injustice. People who are born in these former colonial powers to migrant parents continue to face discrimination. Take a look at this survey. 32% of UK-born respondents with migrant parents perceive discrimination against their group. In France, it is 27%, and in Belgium, it is 28%. In America, 63% of African Americans and 43% of Latino Americans were in favor of reparations when they were asked if the USA should pay reparations for slavery and other forms of racial discrimination. Shouldn't these Western nations do some self-introspection too? As far as India is concerned, reservation can continue as long as it is required, but shouldn't there be plans to tackle reverse discrimination as well? And even more importantly, discrimination and oppression within the same caste groups in India cannot be ignored. Oppression and discrimination within the lower caste groups can also be examined. Now I will focus on what it is all about regarding religious conversion and my husband. I am a Catholic and my husband-to-be was a Hindu. I wanted to get married in a church. We had two options. Option 1, to convert my husband-to-be to the Catholic faith. Or option 2, to not convert him but give a signed written confirmation that our future children will be raised only as Catholic Christians. We refused that, and as a result, I was denied by the church to have my wedding rituals take place inside the church. We went on and got married, but of course, the church didn't participate. Why am I considered to be a sinner for loving a Hindu man? Why am I expected to confess or seek forgiveness in the church for marrying a Hindu? Even today, online and offline, I face societal pressure to baptize my husband and child. Anurag has chosen to remain Hindu, and of course, it is always going to be his individual choice. It has taken you around 30 minutes to watch this informative and data-driven episode, but it took us more than 6,000 hours to produce this for you. Namaste, my name is Karolina Goswami. This is the 10th episode of the Should India Follow the West Blindly series, and the total revenue from YouTube on this series so far is only $430, which means less than $50 per episode. That is why we have been requesting you to support our work financially. In this particular series, we have at least 10 more episodes that are currently in the pipeline. And please, do not leave yet. Please read these notes carefully.